Today we are starting with Chapter 3, Respect. Respect. Aretha Franklin sings about it. Lots of comedians and plenty of the rest of us complain about they never get any. We all need it. Everybody, not just someone with the teacher or adult label. These seventh grade speakers know exactly what it feels like and what the opposite feels. And a commitment to its part just about every list of classroom rules. In some classrooms, it is the only rule. The word respect inevitably enters the conversation on that first day of school when the teachers discuss rules. I can hear myself now saying, one of my expectations is that we respect each other. I can hear myself adding the idea of respecting each other's opinions and differences. After several years of this approach, I realized I was operating under the faulty assumption that students understood exactly what I meant. Teachers continually demand respect, but students do not always know exactly what it means or what it looks like in a classroom. Do not make this assumption. Students receive all kinds of media messages about that show disrespect at every turn. Reality shows, commercials with offensive humor, celebrities who say whatever comes to mind no matter the content or possible harm to others, ads, music, videos, YouTube videos, and dozens of images that illustrate disrespect for individuals, women, or particular groups. According to a 2010 Kaiser Family Foundation report, 8 to 18-year-olds spend over 7 hours a day using entertainment media. This does not count time doing homework, right out for in Roberts 2010. The more students see and hear disrespect, the more desensitized they become to it. It is no wonder that they feel it's okay to treat peers and adults with disrespect. Teachers must deliberately explain, discuss, and nurture respect, so students know when it is present and when it is not. Teachers must deliberately confront disrespect without respect. The satisfactory student teacher relationships and safety needed for optimal learning cannot exist. Respect is a cornerstone for effective classroom management, but it is not something that happens because you make it a rule. It has to be modeled, taught, and consistently examined. Disrespect must also be examined and discussed. What is respect? The word respect comes from the Latin word respectar, which means to look again. At its deepest level, it means seeing another person. This kind of seeing involves acknowledging a person as a fellow human being worthy of esteem. One formal definition of respect is a feeling of esteem for a person or other entity and specific actions that show esteem. Other definitions use such words and phrases as take notice of, to admire, to show regard for, to regard with special attention, or to treat as consequential. Do not confuse respect with tolerance. Tolerance does not imply any positive feeling. Respect is a positive stance. Respect is characterized by actions that honor somebody. Any mutually satisfying relationship is based on each person noticing and honoring the other. Not confuse respect and with obedience. Students might obey you, but that could be out of fear. It does not mean they respect you. Sometimes it is helpful to understand a concept by looking at its opposite. The opposite of respect is scorn or contempt, regarding a person or group as inferior or worthless. Contempt is usually directed at someone perceived as having lower status than oneself. It manifests itself as disgust or disregard. You can be alerted to the absence of respect when you see signs of contempt, disgust, or scorn. The chain of respect. Respect is a powerful management tool for promoting a classroom climate where students can learn and grow academically, socially, personally, and emotionally. But as I said before, this is not a simple matter of requiring respect. Development of a respectful classroom takes skill, dedication, and a whole lot of teaching. Classroom management, in the sense of making your life easier or getting kids to behave better, is not the best motivation for working on respect. The reasons for practicing respect among persons in your classroom are more important than just fewer discipline problems. You will have fewer discipline problems, but that is not the main goal. Reason for focusing on respect is that all human beings need it and deserve it. Feeling respected and being able to give respect contribute to a satisfying, successful life Disrespect is highly damaging both to the person who is disrespected and the one who does the disrespecting. Each of your students need to feel respect and give respect to others. For their self-preservation, happiness, learning, and life. The chain of respect starts with you. If you, the adult in the room, the leader, do not demonstrate respect, it is not likely to happen in your classroom. So here's the chain, a graphic starting from teacher self-respect, clockwise to student respect, student self-respect, student to student respect, and student to teacher respect back to teacher self-respect. Note that this chain is a circle. The respect that starts with you will come back to you. Teacher self-respect. Respect in your classroom begins with you. With your own respect for yourself, self-respect is about feeling valued. It's about loving yourself for who you are. Sense of value begins at birth and is shaped throughout childhood. Many incidents and people add to the sense of self that begins in the home. If a child is treated with love and esteem for his or her real self, the chances for healthy self respect will be good. Other people affect the development of our esteem for ourselves, but ultimately it comes from within. It is surprising how many people do not respect themselves. This will take work for those who were not treated with respect, particularly during childhood, but it is important to work on, because a lack of self respect will get passed on to others in forms that are unhealthful. To begin the chain of respect in your classroom, give some thought to your level of self respect. Ask yourself questions such as: do I feel that my opinions are valuable? Am I true to myself? Do I present a false sense to others? How do I feel about my abilities as a teacher? Do I fall apart when I am criticized? Do I feel good about my appearance? Am I plagued by jealousy? Do I frequently feel disdain for others? Do I bounce back from hard knocks? Am I able to forgive myself and others? Am I burdened by regret or guilt? Do I get caught up in self destructive behaviors? Am I glad to be me? If you feel that your self respect is sagging and needs a boost, seek some help to recover it. For out of a secure and healthy respect for yourself, you as a teacher will be able to set off a chain reaction of respect in your classroom. Teacher to students respect. It's a given. If you do not respect your students, they will not respect you. And the more disrespect you show, the more disrespect students will return. But the good news is that the opposite is also a given. Respect from teacher breeds respect from the students. This means that you must treat every student with respect all of the time. The message is that simple. Of course, it's not always easy. When students disrespect you, outright challenge you, disrespect one another, or act in ways that frustrate you, you might feel they do not deserve your respect. But that's the thing about respect. Everyone deserves it all the time. So yes, even when a student is being rude, demeaning, or just plain rotten to you, you must treat him or her with respect. It is the only way to build a base of respect in your classroom. Counter disrespect with respect. Remember, the reason to respect another person is that each person deserves respect, regardless of his or her behavior, attitude, oddities, or personality. The esteem, or lack thereof, that you feel in your heart for each student will show in your communications, body language, and responses. Students have great respect detectors. If there's a hint of disdain, contempt, disregard, scorn, or disgust, the student will sense it, and you can kiss goodbye any hope of good relationship with that student. And, oh, you can also kiss goodbye effective classroom management. How can you show that you respect students? Here are a few of the best practices I have observed and used. 1. Be fair. You do not have to, and often should not, treat all students equally, but you should treat them equitably. Enforce consequences fairly. Do not show favoritism. Be constantly vigilant about this. You will have a tendency to like certain kinds of students or to feel more comfortable with some than others. Fairness demands your commitment to keep those personal preferences in check. 2. Be positive, affirming, and polite. Encourage and compliment students. Do not embarrass, belittle, or laugh at a student. Give feedback in positive, hopeful terms. Affirm what students are doing right much more than what they are not doing right. Treat students kindly and politely. Say please and thank you. Respect their privacy. This is just good manners. 3. Be honest. If you misunderstand something or take a wrong action, admit it. Apologize. For some people, admitting they are wrong is akin to cutting off an arm. To admit to being wrong is to look inferior to those around them. I find an appropriate apology to be a wonderful opportunity generally has positive effects. Admitting you are wrong shows students that you are human. This tells them that though you are the adult in the room, you do not always know the right answers or make the exactly right choice. When you admit you made a gaffe, the respect you will reap from your students is immeasurable gain. 4. Listen. When a student initiates a conversation or responds to something you ask, place yourself at eye level and make eye contact. This shows that you are taking him or her seriously. Make sure you are not attending to the papers in your hand or looking at your watch. Focus your attention to the greatest extent possible on the student. Don't interrupt. After the student has time to convey the message, ask questions that show your interest. Give positive feedback. When the situation involves an issue, incident, or behavior problem, listen to the student's side of the story before jumping to conclusions. Always ask a student to explain what he or she thinks happened. Let the students talk first to make his or her case before you make judgment. Don't rush to a decision. Listen and consider the student's points and feelings. 5. Remember and respond. One of the greatest ways to show respect to your students is to remember what a student tells you about his or her life and then comment on it from time to time. It sounds so simple, but with the responsibilities we have as teachers, it can be difficult to find those times. A little thing, such as mentioning a new sibling or a favorite pastime, could be very powerful in showing that you value a student. Many teachers give students a survey at the beginning of the year asking them a variety of personal questions about such things as birthdays, family, and favorite activities. This is a great idea, but the questions and student answers mean nothing if you do not remember and refer to that information now and then. Teachers do not remember and respond, students will come to realize that the survey was only a pretense of interest. 6. Don't yell. Every kid will tell you that yelling does not work, but worse, it works against you. Kids today will do everything in their power to avoid being dissed in front of their peers. If that means taking you on and receiving the ultimate consequence, they'll risk it. Instead of yelling at them in front of the class or as a class, use "I need" or "this is what needs to happen" or "now is the time to" statements and do everything possible not to raise your voice. When you raise your voice, you show students that they have succeeded in pushing you to your limit. Basically, if you are yelling, you have lost the battle. You must stay calm. Take a deep breath and be direct and specific about what you want them to do or change. Expect them to do it, and they might surprise you and actually do it. It's also okay to express utter frustration with your students or with their behavior and ask them what they can do about it rather than waste everyone's time. When given some power to handle their own classroom behavior, students may actually surprise you again with good ideas about how to improve class behavior. Be careful, sometimes students will want to be more directive and authoritative than necessary, giving consequences that are too harsh, even to themselves. It can be fun to say to them, "I wouldn't want to punish any of you that way." 7. Watch your body language. Because you are the adult, you often have a commanding presence. Take care not to threaten or intimidate students with nonverbal signals. If you stand behind your desk, loom over them, lean into their faces, shake a fist or finger, cross your arms, turn away, heave big, disgusted sighs, or back away, you show disrespect. Demonstrate respect with your gestures and body position, as well as with your facial expressions, actions, and words. My good friend and mentor Debbie Silver, also consultant, humorist, and speaker, once gave me this good advice. When you have to talk to a student about behavior, do not stand directly in front of him, instead, stand next to him. Debbie believes that this strategy immediately dispels threat, removes the power struggle from the situation, and relaxes everyone involved. I have used this strategy many times, and I must say, it really works. 8. Confront students in private. There will be times when you must confront a student about behavior. When confrontation is public, there will be a winner and a loser, at least in the eyes of the student. Make a pledge not to confront students in front of other students. It is much more respectful and much more effective to deal with discipline issues or other sensitive issues privately. When you do this in public, you demonstrate disrespect, you lose respect, and the student loses face. When you do it in private, you take away the elements of shame and embarrassment, and you have a chance for connection and reconciliation because the student does not have to put up a defensive front for peers. It is never a good idea to make an example of a student's behavior. You might think you're teaching the whole class a lesson, but part of the lesson will be disrespect for the student in trouble, and you will lose the chance to teach the student anything. 7. Let them save face. I learned very early in my career that one way to show respect to students is to always, and I mean always, give students opportunity to save face, to avoid embarrassment in front of their peers. As in number 8 above, this is critical in discipline situations. There are many other situations in which this is also necessary. With all those hormones running rampant in pre-adolescence and adolescence, combined with their intense need for peer acceptance, to lose face could mean to lose everything, including their respect for you. In your career, you will witness eyes tearing up, not just girls, but also boys, over the most minuscule things. To adults, these situations may seem minor. To students, these situations may mean their reputation, their pride, and their position with their peers. For all students, especially boys, you must provide an out. At least temporarily, allow a student to walk away, give him or her a pass to leave the room, and change the subject quickly. These tactics help students redeem themselves in front of their most important people in their lives, peers. If it is a behavior issue or other incident that breaks rules, you must finish the conversation or the confrontation at a later time. All students need to recognize that the teacher respects the need to cry in private, but that tears will not be permission to avoid a discussion about the incident. 10. Be an advocate for students. This is one of the most powerful strategies you can use to show respect for students. I can remember every detail of a day in 6th grade when my teacher stood up for me. PE teacher came to our homeroom door with a criticism about me. I was fully prepared for humiliation and punishment from the PE teacher and my homeroom teacher. Instead, I got a teacher on my side, one who spoke in my defense, asked questions I could not have asked, and helped me state my case. My respect for that teacher soared, so did my confidence in myself. Stand up and speak up for students in tough situations, with parents or with colleagues. Many students do not experience adults in the school as their advocates. They think of the school setting as them, adults against us, students. Break that stereotype, surprise them. Show students that you are on their side. 11. Be reliable and trustworthy. Keep your promises. Do what you say you were going to do. Be someone kids can count on. Don't gossip. Fiercely protect confidences. Follow through. 12. Be trusting. Let students take appropriate responsibilities, then trust them to be able to carry them out. You can demonstrate trust by finding opportunities to give students significant voice in their classroom operation and in their learning. Chapter 11 discusses student voice and choice in depth and gives many strategies for doing this. You show and build respect when you give students some real power over their lives in the classroom and over their learning. Then trust them to do the tasks they have agreed to take on. 13. Ask for their opinions. Don't be afraid to ask students what they think about certain situations, even those situations in which they have something to say about. Once, when a student in an after school program spoke to one of our adults in a disrespectful tone, I told the student that he would have to leave. When he left, I turned to the group and asked them if they thought that I was being fair. It was a great conversation. Some students felt that my action was appropriate, others felt that I had called him out in front of his peers, and therefore he was going to react. Needless to say, the adults in the room learned plenty from listening to students' opinions, and the students felt they were respecting their voice and opinions. A cautionary note. In this kind of a situation, make it clear to the students that you are soliciting their input, not asking them to make decisions about how you will handle this particular student. 14. Help students succeed. When I ask students to describe what respect from a teacher looks like, many of the responses have to do with the teacher helping students learn. When you show that you believe a student can achieve, he feels respected. When you help a student master something or reach a goal, she feels respected. Students know that it is your job to help them learn. They respect you when you do your job. They also feel respect from you that they were worth your time and trust, and their self respect is enhanced too. One of the best things you can do in a classroom is to identify an individual's learning needs and goals, and then help the student meet them. 15. Start fresh every day. Let yesterday's issues belong to yesterday. Let each student start a new day, without fearing that you will hold over judgments, annoyances, grudges, or remembrances of misbehavior from other days. Make sure the consequences are properly enforced, then let go of the issue infraction. Each child should feel free to enter your classroom with renewed hope and a new chance for a good day. Students will feel respected when you do them the honor of expecting that each day will be a good one for them, even if they had a major screw up yesterday. Student self respect. Lack of self respect is at the root of much rude behavior or misbehavior. Persons who do not respect others generally do not respect themselves. Lack of self respect is a major factor behind bullying. Disrespectful persons of any age, whether or not they are classified as a bully, often try to demand respect, but what they get is not satisfying. And this frustrating inability to get respect can erupt as anger. There are few tasks as important as helping a child deepen her self respect. It is a hard thing to teach, because the roots of a student's self respect are formed deep in early childhood and through a wide range of important social interactions. But a student with self respect will have more rewarding social interactions, will more likely contribute to a respectful classroom, and will be better able to reach his or her academic potential. In the classroom, you can set processes and create situations to nurture students' self respect. One of the most basic strategies is to follow the kinds of advice given so far in this chapter for creating a climate of respect. That is the best kind of setting for deepening feelings of self value. Here are some of the specific goals and strategies you can pursue for nourishing self respect. Allow for and encourage independence in students' work and thinking. Give students responsibility, trust them to handle it. Set strong expectation for respecting one another, and hold students to them. Build individuals' self confidence by helping them succeed in their studies. Do everything you can to help each student experience a sense of belonging. Be honest. Celebrate student accomplishments. Identify and affirm personal qualities. When you discipline a student, focus on the action, not on the child's character or person. Encourage students not to give up. Give assistance so they can succeed. Help them set reasonable, attainable goals. Affirm choices and decisions that are healthy for the student. Ask for student input. Tell them that their opinions matter. Tell them that wrong behavior does not make them bad. Listen to students and validate their feelings. Student to student respect. Now we come to the really important link on the respect chain, students treating each other with respect. Without plenty of student to student respect, your classrooms will be an unpleasant place for all of the inhabitants. However, by this point in the chain, your students will have had plenty of good lessons about respect. Some teachers feel that the most important thing in classroom management is for students to behave respectfully toward the teacher. I am much more concerned with how they treat each other. In this section, I will focus on teaching respect, because it's in the context of the students relating to each other that respect is best taught. 1. Model respect. First way to teach respect, as I've already shown, is for the teacher to model it. Innumerable respect lessons are taught this way. Here are some other ways to teach respect among students. 2. Define respect. Go back to the beginning of this chapter and share the definitions and descriptions with students. Define disrespect as well. 3. Discuss respect. Talk about respect. Do this the first day of school. Start the conversation about what respect is and how it looks in school. Keep the discussion going all year long. Discuss it in the whole group and in small groups. Talk about what it is. Talk about its opposite, disrespect. Deal with words such as contempt, disdain, honor, esteem, value, and discount. Talk about how it feels to be the recipient of disrespect. 4. Make respect personal. Ask students to give examples from their own experiences. You give examples, ask students to ask out examples of respect. Ask them to show how respect feels and how disrespect feels. Ask them to tell how they know when they get respect and not. 5. Make respecting one another a classroom rule. Make it the most important classroom rule. Talk about respect as a basic right of human beings. Make sure students are clear about the consequences of not following the rule. 6. Expect respect. Show students early and clearly that respect is expected, but make sure they know what you mean by this. Don't assume they will do it if they don't fully understand it. 7. Notice respect, respond to it. Keep your eyes open all the time for demonstrations of respect. Affirm these. State that it is what you see that is respectful. 8. Notice disrespect, respond to it. Do not allow disrespect, even what may seem like minor incidences, to go unrecognized. Do not tolerate it. Consistently apply the consequences that have been outlined. If you do not respond to disrespect, your silence will reinforce it. 9. Elaborate on respect. Extend the discussion of respect to more subtle manifestations. Discuss its connection to respect with for opinions, beliefs, likes and dislikes, skills and abilities, interests, cultural backgrounds, and racial and gender and sexual identity differences. Encourage students to see how variety makes life more interesting. Talk about manifestations of disrespect that may seem harmless, laughing at someone behind his or her back, mimicking someone, making fun of someone privately to a friend, talking while someone is talking, teasing someone, pressuring someone to do something that is against his wishes or beliefs, or something she does not want to do. 10. Talk about the power of words. Students and others are often oblivious about the power of their words. Bring this to the front of the discussion. Think about what words can do. Find examples of words that can elevate, hurt, embarrass, comfort, encourage, or demean. Students can build a list of words and phrases appropriate to write or say in school that they will commit to use or not use. 11. Build an activity around respect. Don't underestimate either the power or the necessity of specific lessons that examine and promote respect among students. Here are a few suggestions. Once you get started, other ideas will flow. Don't neglect to pull students into the creating of such activities. They'll have great ideas. Media scan. The culture is full of models of disrespect. Use examples from the genres and sources that are part of students' lives. Find some clips from movies or TV shows. Have students track down ads, apps, YouTube videos, and song lyrics. Look for examples of respect and disrespect. Share these. Ask questions such as, what is happening here? Who shows respect? Who shows disrespect? How do you know? Where else have you seen similar behavior? Do you do this? Do your friends do this? Why? What is the impact? How does this feel for the person being respected or disrespected? What are or will be the consequences of the incidents or actions you just saw, heard, or read? Why are people sometimes disrespectful to one another? Recipe for respect. Let the students work in groups or pairs to create a recipe for respect in the classroom. Ask them to think carefully about the ingredients and the behaviors or steps for putting the recipe together. Suggest that they think about how and where to serve it. Encourage them to illustrate the recipe. Respect collage. Get a stack of newspapers and magazines. Students can find words, phrases, titles, and images that communicate respect. This will take some ingenuity. Give them space to display their creations and time to comment on them. Disagreement without disrespect. Each day, I try to present and discuss a current event, especially those current events that are contentious and controversial. I believe it is important to provide opportunities for our students to grapple with issues that their parents and societies are discussing. It is also very important that I model and help students learn how to communicate with one another respectfully even when they disagree with one another, a skill many of our national leaders struggle to develop. I vividly remember one student who had very strong opinions about every subject and was never afraid to share those opinions, even when he stood alone. I had to admire him for that, especially in a middle school classroom. However, the young man also believed he was always right and literally would make faces and noises. Yes, noises. Every time someone disagreed with his opinion. What he was doing was disrespectful to his classmates, and yet I felt that if I addressed his behavior, I might shut him down entirely. He had every right to his opinion, but he did not have the right to be disrespectful to his peers. After much reflection and discussion with my colleagues, I decided that I needed to address his behavior privately. Naturally, it happened the next day, so I asked him to stay for a minute after class. We had a great conversation, and I specifically identified exactly what he was doing. It is crucial to be precise with students about what the behavior is that you deem as inappropriate. I ended the conversation by telling him that I loved his willingness to share his opinion, but that it was important for him to demonstrate respect to his peers just as they did to him. Consequences for his disrespectful behavior were spelled out and applied. By the end of the year, he was able to listen to his peers without making faces and noises. While the class is discussing a current event or particular issue, I do not tolerate yelling, interrupting, or put downs. There are consequences for those behaviors, which may include, after a warning, stopping the current event discussion for the day or week. Other students do not like this consequence, so at times, I may move the student to the hall until our discussion is complete. Difference doesn't mean bad. This is an activity I have used to illustrate the need to respect our differences. 1. Gather several colors of markers and several sheets of white computer paper with an empty bar graph printed on the paper. Graph has a wide empty bar for yes and empty bar for no. Create different statements and write one on each sheet. Tape the sheets around the room. See examples on page 83. Make about half the number of graphs as the students as you have. 15 graphs for 30 students. See page 88 for example. 3. Assign 2 students to each statement. Explain to students that they will respond to the statement by using their marker to color a small portion on the empty bar that best represents each of them as individuals. Model this for the class. Give students about 15 seconds at each graph and then call rotate. Explain the direction that the class will rotate. 4. Once all students have addressed the statements and colored the graph, ask the following questions. What do you see? What does this tell you about your class? Answers will include such ideas as that there are many different responses or that not all students answered in the same way. 5. Explain to the class that all of us come to this room with different interests and different strengths. We need to respect and accept the differences in each of us. Examples of statements. I'm good at math. I like to read. I can speak another language. I've traveled to another country. I can fix things when they break. I like to dance. I'm a good artist. I'm good at most sports. I'm confident when I speak in front of others. I like animals. I'm able to listen to the teacher and remember the information. I like to learn by doing hands-on activities. I have stepsisters, stepbrothers, or stepparents. I do my homework the day I get it. At the beginning of the year, use low-risk statements so students can feel safe and comfortable as they adjust to your classroom. Once you have built a community feeling within the class, you can try some higher-risk statements. Happiness sheets. I use this activity near the end of the year as a way to incorporate positive affirmations among the students in my class, but you can use it at any time after the students have had a chance to get to know each other. 1. Give each student a sheet of paper. At the top of the paper, they will write their first and last names in somewhat bigger letters than they would normally use. 2. Explain the rotation system you expect them to use. Make sure you as the teacher are also involved. 3. Talk about what positive affirmations are and give several examples of the kinds that may want to write on their classmates' papers. An example I give is that it is more powerful to write I like your smile than it is to write I like you. 4. When you tell them to begin, the students will pass papers to the person in front of them. The student will write a positive affirmation about the person whose name is at the top. 5. Students must sign their names after each affirmation. This eliminates negative comments. 6. I usually give about 20 seconds before I call for a rotation. 7. Once every student has had a chance to respond to his or her peers, give them time to read the affirmations from their peers. Respect on display. After you have talked about respect for a while, ask students to compile posters that answer this question. What does respect look like in the classroom? Students can work in small groups, and if you wish, you can consolidate the ideas into one large poster. They can specify components of classroom respect or combine them. For example, a poster could be titled, What does respect look like from teacher to student, or from student to teacher, or from student to student? You can also create posters answering the question, What does disrespect look like? Or what do teachers do that is disrespectful? Or what do students do that is disrespectful? On the next 2 pages, see examples of posters on ideas from my students. Page 86 and 87 are full of examples. 88 also has an example of the bar graph. Student to teacher respect. So here we are at the component of classroom respect that seems most important to some teachers. My belief, as you have certainly picked up by now, is that all relationships within the classroom are equally important. Teacher deserves the same level of respect as every other person in the classroom, but not necessarily any more. By the time we get to this point on the respect chain, which is actually a respect circle, student to teacher respect is not difficult to address or put into practice. Students should be respectful to adults, not because they are adults, but because they are human beings deserving of respect. In your classroom, you can expect students to respect you because you have really worked at creating a climate of mutual respect with techniques such as those discussed in this chapter. But what about adults who have not demonstrated this kind of respect toward students? Make sure students understand that it is right to meet disrespect with respect, that they are to treat adults respectfully even if they do not like them. In the real school world, where adults are the authority figures, students need to be especially aware of the necessity to treat adults with respect, or they will surely have troubles. Dedicate some discussions and lessons just to the topic of student to adult respect. Make sure students understand that this relates to all students in the class. Students need clear examples of student to teacher respect, just as they need to see what respect from teacher to student looks like. I do this by setting up scenarios involving respectful or disrespectful behavior, or by inviting a student to help by acting out a scenario. Example, I ask a student for the second time to take her seat. Student rolls her eyes and huffs as she moves towards her seat. I ask the class, would this be considered disrespectful? Why or why not? Then I explain what a reaction like this tells me. Her nonverbal signals and her body language say that she is disgusted with me, doesn't like me at this moment, and it doesn't want to do what I just asked her to do. Students need to understand that disrespect can be demonstrated with nonverbal responses just as clearly as with rude words. Example: I encourage a student to get started on his work. He responds in a very sarcastic tone. I demonstrate the tone, yeah, yeah, I will in a minute. Again, I ask the students, would this be considered disrespectful? Why or why not? I explain. His tone of voice tells me that he does not like what I just said, does not think of me as the leader in the classroom, or does not think that I have the right to tell him what to do in the classroom. Then I remind students that it is not always what you say that can be disrespectful. How you say it is also can also show disrespect. Final example. During a class discussion, a student is incessantly talking to his neighbor. I ask him to please stop talking. He responds sarcastically, What? I wasn't talking. Once more, I ask the students, would this be considered disrespectful? Why or why not? I explain. This response tells me that the student thinks that I'm not telling the truth or that I did not clearly see what was happening. I tell my students that this is a way of insulting me and demanding that I give in to what I know is wrong, or start an argument with the student. This argumentative denial is disrespectful. What, then, does respectful behavior look like? Students need demonstrations of this to accompany the examples of disrespect. I'm sorry, Miss Campbell, will earn them much more respect from me than an argument. An apology also merits a very quick return to normal feelings between the students and teacher. However, I also tell them that an apology means nothing if the behavior does not change. Many times a day, I remind students that honesty is respect. I tell them that I will be honest with them and that they need to be honest with me. I promise to admit when I'm wrong. I tell them that I expect the same from them. I stress to them that as they learn to admit when they are wrong, take responsibility, and accept the consequences, they show respect to their peers and me, and in turn earn respect from us. Acceptance is part of maturing and part of the way our classroom needs to operate. This respect extends to all adults in the classroom and school. I make sure my students hear this frequently. Many classrooms have paraprofessionals. I introduce the paraprofessional and tell students that this person is an important member of our classroom community. I make a point to students that if any adult in the school asks for cooperation, I expect that each student will comply respectfully. In his book, The 55 Essentials, Ron Clark suggests that students learn the name of all the adults in the school, 2003. This includes teachers, secretaries, kitchen staff, paraprofessionals, administrators, volunteers, and maintenance staff. Personally introduce the adults in your building to your students. This demonstrates to students your respect for these adults and affirms their importance as members of the school community. Periodically, I will introduce 2 or 3 staff members and explain what they do in our building. I challenge the students to create shock and awe with the adults in the building by using their names and giving a quick hello when they see them in the hallways or in their workplaces. Look and behave like an adult. It is hard for students to respect you as an adult or perceive you as an authority figure if you do not behave as an adult. Be an adult, talk like an adult, dress like an adult. 2 years ago, a young, right out of college female was hired as our high school social studies teacher. She was petite, blonde, hip, and fun, and looked 16 at the very most. Immediately, she began to have discipline issues, and my phone began to ring, both from her and her principal. After spending some time observing in her classroom, it became obvious that she was experiencing some typical new teacher problems, such as lack of follow through, inconsistent messages, lack of clear instructions, and so on. However, I also noticed how she was dressed: low riding jeans, a tight t shirt, and flip flops. Oh, the joys of being young. Seriously, I knew her choice of attire was going to be a part of our discussion. During our post observation discussion, she told me, with a smile on her face, that she continually gets stopped by the high school hall monitors asking her where she's supposed to be and requesting to see her hall pass. But not until she shows them her ID that they believe her. She told me this was the opening I needed. I began explaining to her that it was possible that some of her management issues were presenting themselves because she looked young, fit, fun, and more like a student than a teacher, all characteristics we veteran teachers envy. I explained the predicament. Looking so young was putting her at a disadvantage because students were seeing her as one of them instead of the authority in the classroom. I recommended that she take immediate steps to look more mature. This happens a lot with young teachers. They are prejudged as lacking experience, and hey, it's probably true, right? Changing the manner of dress to look more professional benefits the teacher and makes lines clearer to the students. It also helps to gain respect from colleagues and parents. Parents help you appear wise, tasteful, adult, and responsible in front of their impressionable teenagers. This issue is not unique to new or young teachers. I see many veteran teachers who come to school every day in jeans, sweatshirts, and clothes that one would wear at home in the garden. This seems to be a poor way to represent the teaching profession, which is clearly under attack on many fronts. We should do everything we can to exemplify professionalism, confidence, and integrity. The way a teacher dresses is a subtle and easy way to exert influence on the classroom. If the attire is overly casual or sloppy, he shows low esteem for himself, his students, and his profession. Students may assume they can treat a casually dressed teacher in a casual manner, or that classroom's rules can be casually followed. I am old fashioned enough to believe that a teacher who dresses for success will communicate that it is an honor to be an educator. Avoid clothing that is too short or tight. Flip flops, tank tops, or any clothing that shows your midriff. You raise your arms or reveals cleavage when you bend over. Don't dress like the kids, even if that is how you dress when you go out on the town. When you ask students to respect all adults, make sure they see you the same. Students are watching your responses to parents and colleagues. They may also overhear your cell phone calls and your conversation with other adults. They will notice disapproval, disrespect, disgust, annoyance, gossip, sarcasm, facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice. While you're giving them speeches and about respecting all adults in the school, be sure you are showing respect for all school staff members and parents and visitors with your language, actions, and attitude. Follow the rules of the school. Do not gossip, show esteem for colleagues, treat parents kindly, respect your authority figures. Unfortunately, in our culture, the idea of respect has changed, or in some cases, the emphasis on it. My students tell me that to be respected, a teacher must earn respect. Yes, that is true, so make sure you do earn it. But we also must constantly repeat the message that all persons deserve respect, even if they are not working hard to earn it. Plan to include the topic of interest early, regularly, and all year long in your classroom. Go back to page 58 and review the strategies you listed. If they are working, be sure to strengthen them and keep using them. Expand your repertoire with more ideas from this chapter. Such efforts will be gifts you give to your students and to yourself. Contempt, the opposite of respect, is powerful and destructive. Drive it out with relentless respect. You will have taken a huge step toward the successful classroom management. And that ends chapter 3 of If You Can't Manage Them, You Can't Teach Them.